A deadly gas explosion inside of a NYCHA building, killing a person overnight.
As firefighters made their way inside the building, people could be heard screaming.
Town was massive. We're talking about thousands of people that came out and below. ICE has been using the airport to fly arrested individuals out of the state. Well, those
officials will go after their families as well. So it's a very coercive thing. So they have their
come this weekend. We'll update your forecast. This Channel 5 News at 5 begins right now.
Is America sliding downhill faster than we think? Or has the clock already started ticking down? Fires break out in the city that never sleeps. Crowds clash in the freezing cold. Borders are cracking. Crime is creeping in. Resources are being drained dry. Underground networks are choking people. Violence is hitting the government head on. 7 news stories, 7 sharp cuts, coming fast, piling up, not giving anyone a chance to breathe. Everything's moving at once, like a whirlwind dragging the future right to the edge of the cliff. Do you think this is all just random? Or is it a sequence that's been put together on purpose? If these pieces fit together, what picture are we going to see? The answer isn't here yet. The space is still open, and what's about to come out behind it might change the way you look at the world forever. So before we go any deeper into this journey, please leave a prayer in the comments below as a way to tell God that we're listening to His warnings. Now, I'm going straight into the first extremely tense event. Big Bronx fire, flames from hell lighting up the New York sky. The fire shot up high, straight, like a fierce, bright column, bouncing off dark windows and shaking everything around. Thick black smoke rolled up, blocking out the New York sky, turning a regular night into something that stretched every sense to the breaking point. The old building on Bivona Street quickly became the center of total chaos. Flames climbed straight up, swallowing floor after floor, breaking glass and twisting metal mixed with the non-stop blare of fire truck sirens. Those video clips from the moment hit hard. Just watching them makes you feel that uneasy dread settling in, like the normal order of things got ripped apart. The Bronx is home to over 1 million people, packed into buildings that have stood for decades. Old gas lines, spotty repairs, quiet warnings that had been around for years. When the fires started, all those things linked up into a chain reaction nobody could stop. More than 200 firefighters rushed in. Ladder trucks reached high through the thick smoke, hoses blasting water non-stop into the blinding white-hot area, where every step forward was a line between life and death. Fox News reported and confirmed the damage fast. People killed, others hurt from burns and smoke, hundreds of residents left without a home in just a few hours. Out on the cold sidewalk, folks wrapped in thin blankets, staring at the scorched concrete that used to be their roof. It wasn't just stuff lost. It was the long-time feeling of being safe that came crashing down. Right in that scene, the Bible story from the original piece stands out clearer than ever. Genesis 19 tells about Sodom and Gomorrah, where fire came down from heaven, not just to destroy, but to show a society rotten from the inside. The similarity isn't in anything supernatural. It's in the wake-up call. When warning signs of decay get ignored too long, collapse comes as the only possible end. The black smoke covering the Bronx sky brings to mind Joel 2:30-31, where smoke and fire show up as signs that shake people's hearts. In the Bible, that's the moment folks have to face their limits, when everything that seems solid suddenly feels fragile. Here, the smoke isn't just from the fire. It's a curtain hiding the belief that modern cities are always under control. Some say it was just a technical accident, the result of worn-out infrastructure and human mistakes. That view makes sense, but it doesn't reach the deeper layer. In the Bible, big events rarely stand alone. They come as reminders of a buildup of causes over time. Matthew 24 talks about these shocks as the beginning of birth pains, not to scare people, but to wake them up. So, the Bronx fire isn't just a fire. It shows the cracks in a tired system, where warnings get brushed off until things explode. It also mirrors the state of the modern world, fast, crowded, depending on complex but fragile setups. When one link breaks, The fallout spreads way beyond what anyone expected. There's one moment in the videos where red embers fall like rain, then go out on the wet street. That image feels more like a quiet whisper than a shout. Not loud, but it sticks with you. It reminds us that every foundation, whether steel or faith, needs regular checks and care. You look at that scene and wonder, is this just one lone accident, or part of a growing string of warnings coming faster and faster? As the flames die down in the Bronx, that uneasy feeling still hangs in the air, and off in the distance, other events are waiting to come into view, linking up like pieces of a bigger picture, where each one brings a question that's hard for people to avoid. Protest erupts against ICE. Thousands brave deadly cold. Over 100 arrested amid social storm. Below 0 degree Fahrenheit, Minnesota streets turn into a hot spot of confrontation as public order gets openly challenged. In the bone-chilling cold, thousands poured onto the roads leading into Minneapolis-St. Paul Airport, turning a key travel hub into a tense battleground. Chants filled the air, traffic came to a standstill, and security forces moved in heavy. This wasn't some small gathering. It was a direct clash between authorities and the crowd, with every passing minute pushing the tension higher. Minnesota has over 5.7 million people, and the Twin Cities area is home to a large immigrant community from Latin America and Africa. For years, Minneapolis-St. Paul Airport has been used for immigration enforcement actions, making it a major point of controversy. News reports say these ongoing protest campaigns have drawn thousands, including many clergy from different faiths, showing just how widespread the social strain has become. What happened that day made the standoff crystal clear. Protesters wore thick winter gear, face-covering goggles, with beards and eyebrows frozen solid as they blocked terminal entrances. Police set up lines, gave dispersal warnings, then started making arrests when the road blockade dragged on. According to reports, more than 100 people got handcuffed, mostly for deliberately blocking vehicles and refusing to leave, while hundreds of nearby businesses shut down out of safety concerns. Some experts see this as a head-on collision between two opposing views. One side stresses enforcing the law and border security. The other side fights what they see as harsh, inhumane measures. When you look at this standoff, do you see law and order in action, or a moral crisis being laid bare? This story brings to mind an old scene from the Bible, where social unrest turned into group chaos. Exodus 17:2 tells how the Israelites grumbled and rebelled in the desert when survival pressure cracked their faith and order, leading to deep division. The people quarreled with Moses because of no water, a picture of how, when tension goes too far, clashing with authority becomes almost unavoidable. Looking bigger, prophetic scriptures warn of times when society gets torn apart by distrust and betrayal. Matthew 24:10 says, "Then many will fall away, betray one another, and hate one another." Those words aren't about one single event. They describe a spreading condition where relationships between people and institutions keep getting tested. Another view puts the focus on order and authority. Romans 13:1-2 makes it plain. Everyone must submit to the governing authorities. Whoever resists the authorities resists what God has established. As a warning, this passage highlights the consequences of prolonged confrontation with established power, especially when the conflict moves beyond peaceful talk. American public opinion is sharply divided over this. One side says it's just a political reaction to tough immigration policies, nothing more than a legal matter. The other side sees a moral crisis, where faith, politics, and human rights collide in public spaces. Reports note that over 100 clergy willingly getting arrested has pushed the debate to a deeper level, way beyond a regular protest. These kinds of clashes are clear signs of growing social polarization, where shared trust weakens and each side believes they're defending what's right. The Bible shows up here as a warning about the fallout from long-term division, not to rush to judgment, but to remind us that order and justice only last when anchored in common moral ground. As the Minnesota freeze doesn't cool the tension, the question still hangs. Where will the next flashpoint pop up? And are other parts of this country quietly heading into a bigger spiral of conflict? Mexican president accused of protecting cartels turns down help from Trump. Betrayal, cover-ups, and a border sold out. These accusations hit right at the heart of power in Mexico. The president is accused of shielding the cartels, rejecting tough crackdown offers, and letting organized crime run the whole country. In this picture, it's a chilling warning about the real cost of dealing with the darkness. Mexico City, home to over 9 million people, is the political center but also where crime networks have deep roots. Big cartels like Sinaloa and Jalisco New Generation are accused of controlling politics through bribes, threats, and payoffs. With U.S.-Mexico trade topping $800 billion a year, every choice here spills over the northern border and brings regional security problems. Shocking claims came out saying President Claudia Sheinbaum isn't really running the country. Critics say the cartels are the real power behind the scenes. She did allow 37 cartel members to be handed over to the U.S. as a way to calm things, but she quickly stressed it was a sovereign decision. At the same time, she turned down strong intervention proposals from the U.S., which sparked fierce accusations of corruption and cover-ups. Tensions between the two countries are rising, with strong words flying back and forth. Critics call the refusal of help opening the door to crime, while supporters say it's about defending national sovereignty. According to CNN, this fight shows a big crack in security cooperation, with both sides worried about getting pulled into a conflict they can't control. Public reaction is strong. Some see it as proof the leader is controlled by money and fear. Others call the accusations political attacks meant to put pressure on. Opposition senators used harsh words, calling it a betrayal of the nation's interests. On social media, the debate exploded, turning this into a real test of trust in the government. As a warning, the Bible comes in not to tell old stories, but as a charge sheet against corrupt power. 1 Kings 21:25 tells about King Ahab under Jezebel's influence, when corruption and injustice got made legal, leading to the kingdom's moral collapse. He sold himself to do evil in the sight of the Lord, stands as a clear example of the price of trading away justice. The accusations keep getting backed up by Proverbs 29:4. By justice a king builds up the land, but a greedy man tears it down. When personal gain beats out fairness, the nation's foundation gets eaten away from the inside, just like what these claims describe. Isaiah 1:23 takes it further, pointing straight at the rulers. Your princes are rebels and companions of thieves. Everyone loves a bribe. This isn't just personal wrongdoing anymore. It's a rotten system where justice gets crushed by money and power. 2 Peter 2:19 wraps up the charge with a bitter truth. They promise them freedom, but they themselves are slaves of corruption. When leaders team up with crime to keep things looking stable on the surface, they chain themselves to invisible shackles of dependence. Some skeptics say this is just diplomatic arguing, but the facts show that even though many cartel members have been extradited, their power hasn't really weakened, raising questions about protection from the very top. So the charge isn't just words. It's backed by stubborn reality. In the end, refusing to face crime at its roots is a sign that corruption has gone past the danger line, pulling the whole region closer to a moment of judgment. And if power can be bought with violence and money, the big question hanging there is how far that network will spread, and who will be the next victim when the border no longer holds any moral line. Mexican cartels make about $40 billion a year from modern slavery. Through human smuggling, victims forced to work double shifts to pay endless debt, $40 billion a year, 2 shifts a day, tens of thousands of people trapped in debt they'll never pay off. Those cold numbers aren't from some economic report. They're tied to exhausted faces, calloused hands, and lives locked down the moment they cross the border. This isn't regular migration anymore. It's a non-stop machine that exploits people. Along the over 1,900-mile U.S.-Mexico border, the cartels control every crossing, every group, every protection fee, from Sonora to Chihuahua. Their human smuggling networks are tightly linked to drug trafficking, creating a huge flow of profits. Security agencies estimate this operation alone brings the cartels tens of billions of dollars each year. The reality shows a trap with no way out. Many victims arrive in the U.S. owing $10,000 to $30,000 right from the start, but that amount balloons fast with protection fees, interest, and hidden penalties. They're forced to work 2 shifts in a row at restaurants, warehouses, or processing plants, and send most of their pay back to the people controlling them. Some online reports describe it, and that cycle makes it clear. Freedom sometimes exists only on paper. In investigative stories, the same haunting images keep coming up. A bank card in the victim's pocket, but the cartels control the withdrawals, phones monitored, families back home used as emotional hostages. They're working 2 jobs. So much of their money is going back to those cartels. One report put it, and those words paint the full picture of endless dependence. When you put this story next to the Bible, what seems modern actually looks very old. Exodus chapters 1 and 5 tell how the people of Israel were forced into hard labor in Egypt, drained of strength under economic oppression. Then, in Exodus 21:16, the law is clear. Anyone who kidnaps someone and sells them, or still has them when caught, must be put to death. Those words don't just condemn the act, they expose the true nature of a system that turns people into property. That picture gets even sharper in Revelation 18:13, where it lists the goods of a corrupt empire: horses, chariots, slaves, and human souls. When souls are listed right alongside merchandise, the Bible isn't using some distant metaphor. It's staring straight at a human trafficking market still operating in the 21st century. In Galatians 5:1, the message gets personal. It is for freedom that Christ has set us free. Stand firm then, and do not let yourselves be burdened again by a yoke of slavery. Here, freedom isn't just crossing a border, it's breaking free from every kind of bondage, including the invisible chains of debt and fear. Security and labor experts point out that today's human trafficking doesn't need iron chains or prisons. It runs on secret agreements, on some businesses willingly looking the other way for cheap labor, and on the fear of revenge. The Polaris Project has identified more than 25 forms of trafficking in the U.S., with cartel networks playing a central role, showing this as an organized system, not just scattered cases. Some people argue it's only voluntary economic migration. But when workers can't leave, can't keep the money they earn, and face threats if they push back, the line between voluntary and slavery gets completely blurred. Researchers stress that the $40 billion in profit doesn't come from hope, it comes from calculated exploitation. What's worrying is that this machine shows no sign of slowing down. When people get turned into cash flow, society doesn't just lose justice, it loses its basic moral standards. And as the human smuggling cycle keeps spinning every night, the question isn't only for the border or policies, it's for an entire order that has let this silence go on too long. If human trafficking is how the cartels draw blood from vulnerable people, how many other resources are being drained in the shadows? And where will the next breaking point come for a system with no limits? Industrial-scale oil theft cartel, costing $24 million a day, pushing Mexico toward becoming the next Venezuela. $24 million every single day. 17,000 barrels of oil vanish in just 24 hours. Over 6,800 miles of pipelines riddled with holes and patched up like skin covered in scars. These aren't vague guesses. These are the hard numbers staring us in the face, showing a system being drained right from the country's energy lifeline. When oil stops flowing to the refineries and starts heading to the black market instead, the whole economy starts shaking at its foundation. Pemex, Mexico's state-owned oil company based in Mexico City, runs the pipeline network stretching across states like Hidalgo and Puebla. Industry reports say the cartels keep drilling the same spots over and over, hooking up hoses up to 2 miles long through the woods to suck out crude oil and gasoline, then sell it way below market price. Argus Media reports the losses have jumped nearly 10% lately, hitting around $1.05 billion a year, while tax authorities estimate almost 30% of the gasoline on the streets is stolen stuff. Photos from the scenes show one tank after another seized, all illegal, with pipelines patched in every direction. Losing 17,000 barrels a day isn't just a number, it's direct pressure on the government budget, the infrastructure, and energy security. Some online reports say the cartels sell cheap to undercut legitimate businesses, twisting the market and making it even harder for Pemex to recover. You have to wonder, how long can an economy keep taking this kind of drain? Genesis 41:30-36 tells the story of Joseph, warning about the 7 years of famine coming after the good years, urging people to store up grain to avoid collapse. 7 years of famine will come, and the famine will consume the land. That story shows a clear rule. When greed runs the show, instead of wisdom in managing resources, crisis is the inevitable result. No prophecy needed. Energy and economic experts warn this cycle is creating chain reaction chaos. FTI Consulting says even though fewer illegal tap points are being found, total damage stays high, meaning the cartels have inside men and adapt fast. At the current rate of loss, some models predict Pemex could face a serious cash crisis in just 5-7 years, leading to less investment and crumbling infrastructure. Proverbs 1:19 calls it out straight. Such are the paths of all who go after ill-gotten gain. It takes away the life of those who get it. Hear that greed doesn't just destroy individual lives, it eats away at the whole system's strength, turning shared resources into prey for an armed few. The fallout spreads to society. Cheap stolen oil crashes prices, honest businesses shrink, government revenue drops, and funding for social programs gets squeezed. Some analysts compare this path to what happened in Venezuela, where corruption, weak management, and twisted resource use sent the economy into a long downward spiral lasting decades. Ezekiel 22:12 exposes a society corrupted by short-term gain. In you, they take bribes to shed blood. You take interest and profit. You oppress your neighbor with extortion. This isn't just aimed at the oil thieves, it's also at the network that allows it, where private gain overpowers justice. Some people are skeptical and think the Mexican government can still handle it with better surveillance tech and the military. But real-world data shows that when one tap gets plugged, 2 new ones pop up, and the cost of protection rises faster than they can fix things. That's the sign of a system being hollowed out from the inside, where patch jobs can't keep up with organized erosion. Psalm 62:10 reminds us about the illusion of wealth's power. Do not trust in extortion or put vain hope in stolen goods, though your riches increase. Do not set your heart on them. When a nation ties its survival to dirty money, collapse is just a matter of time. Today's numbers are proof of a serious indictment. Industrial-scale oil theft isn't just economic crime. It's the force dragging a country toward the edge of decline. And as Mexico's oil gets steadily drained, the question hangs in the air. Is this network already spreading to new routes, linking up with regional allies to turn the northern border into the next hotspot? Tren de Aragua team up with Mexican cartels as enforcers in the U.S., tracking victims, forcing them, and collecting federal benefits. New evidence isn't just rumors or side talk anymore. It's right there in official U.S. investigations, where the quiet operations are being exposed step by step. Justice Department files, scattered raids across states, and victim statements all show the same repeated pattern: tracking people, pressuring them, controlling them. When the pieces fit together like this, the question is pretty straightforward. Do you really think a network this big could operate without anyone noticing? From Tocoron prison in Aragua State, Venezuela, Tren de Aragua broke out beyond national borders to become a true transnational group. In the U.S., they've been documented in places like New York, Chicago, and other hotspots, working directly with Mexican cartels as their enforcers. According to investigation reports, they're not just moving drugs, they're carrying out forced tasks, hunting down and putting pressure on migrants who owe debts. This network works like an invisible web, surrounding victims from every angle. Phones get monitored, living places get controlled, jobs get forced on them, and debts of tens of thousands of dollars hang over their heads like a noose. The investigative reports describe how they track down victims with just a few small clues, then force them to work off the debt while taking over apartments and federal benefits. The numbers aren't abstract anymore. Hundreds of victims are documented in federal files. Dozens of investigations are expanding into extortion and human trafficking, and many apartment complexes have turned into hidden control points. When criminals can control people without even showing guns openly, society starts slipping into a dangerous gray area. Ephesians 6:12 warned us clearly, "For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms." The American public reacted strongly when this information came out. Some folks say it's just a local thing that will get shut down soon. But follow-up reports show the opposite. Tren de Aragua isn't slowing down. It's spreading to new areas. The real worry isn't one single gang, but how these criminal groups are teaming up, building something big enough to challenge the legal system. Revelation 17:5 uses a strong picture to describe this kind of alliance. On her forehead was written a name, Babylon the Great, the mother of prostitutes and of the abominations of the earth. Babylon isn't just a city, it's a symbol of corrupt power, where evil forces connect to grow their reach. Reading that passage in today's context, these cross-border crime networks look like a modern version of that image. Some skeptics think things have gone beyond the truth, but Mexico's arrests of several Tren de Aragua members, confirmed by major news outlets, prove the network is very real. Those arrests aren't the end. They're proof that the problem is much bigger than what shows on the surface. Psalm 94:20 asks a haunting question. Can a corrupt throne be allied with you? A throne that brings on misery by its decrees? When crime can hide behind laws, paperwork, and even government benefits, the line between legal and illegal gets blurry. This isn't just a security issue. It's a warning about how the system can get corrupted, turning people into tools for an invisible empire. And as these networks keep spreading, one big question still hangs in the air. Are the coming hotspots of violence and chaos the places where these enforcers push everything past the final limit? Agitators used a U-Haul to haul riot gear and attack the federal building. Tear gas spread everywhere. A U-Haul truck. Inside, it wasn't furniture or moving stuff. It was shields, masks, and tools for violence. That scene happened right in front of the federal building in Minnesota, where law and order got openly challenged and chaos broke out in seconds. When you see that picture, do you still think this was just a normal gathering? The Bishop Henry Whipple Federal Building at Fort Snelling stands as a symbol of federal power, home to ICE and other key agencies. But on that tense day, the calm place quickly turned into a battleground. Organized agitators showed up ready, turning a rented everyday truck into a mobile stash of street-fighting gear. The report lays it out clearly. The U-Haul pulls up, doors open, riot gear gets handed out, and the crowd moves forward like one solid unit. Federal agents got blocked in. Police had to use tear gas and pepper balls to break it up. No more peaceful chants, just explosions, stinging smoke, and running feet in every direction. When the crowd spun out of control, the scene reminded me of an old Bible story. Numbers 16:3 tells of a rebellion against the authority God had set up. They came together against Moses and Aaron, and said to them, "You've gone too far. The whole community is holy." Back then, that crowd also believed they were right, and that belief led them straight to destruction. The chaos didn't stay just physical, it spread online too. Videos went viral showing fireworks thrown at security forces, calls to keep the violence going, and cheers for breaking the law. That kills the idea this was only a peaceful protest. Matthew 24-12 warned about exactly this kind of atmosphere. Because lawlessness will increase, the love of most will grow cold. At the height of the tension, group emotions hit extreme levels. People stopped seeing each other as fellow Americans and started seeing enemies in the way. Order became the enemy, and violence got justified by ideals. 2 Timothy 3:3-4 describes a time like that. Without love, brutal, not loving what is good, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God. The scariest part isn't the shields or masks. It's the hardening of hearts. When violence becomes normal, society reaches a point where evil doesn't even feel shameful anymore. Romans 1:29-30 names it plainly. Full of every kind of unrighteousness, evil envy, murder, strife, deceit, malice. In this picture, the Bible isn't some distant old tale. It becomes a living warning. What happened outside that federal building isn't a one-off event. It's the peak of a long-building wave of disorder. When law gets ignored and violence gets praised, humanity repeats the path of generations that fell because of pride. But even in the darkness, a call still rings out. This isn't just about society. It's a wake-up for every single heart. The chaos outside mirrors emptiness inside, and only when people turn back to God can true order come back. As the smoke finally cleared in Minnesota, one question still hangs in the air. Is this the last warning bell before people wake up, or the sign that the end times have truly begun? Here are 7 really shocking events that just happened. They're no longer just separate news stories. They fit together into one heavy picture. When you put them side by side, you can see an order that's cracking apart from the inside, in nature, in society, and even in people's sense of right and wrong. What's happening isn't really a surprise. It's more like waves building higher, exactly the way they were warned about a long time ago. Matthew 24-6-8 talked about a time like this. You will hear of wars and rumors of wars. Nation will rise against nation. These are the beginning of birth pains. When violence, fear, and unease become the normal way things feel every day, those words stop being some far-off prophecy. They start looking like a mirror of what's really going on. What's worth thinking about isn't just how big these events are, it's how people react to them. A lot of folks get used to the chaos and start treating it like it's just normal life. Pretty soon they lose the ability to tell right from wrong. 2 Timothy 3:1 warns us, in the last days there will be terrible times, because people's hearts change, love grows cold, and conscience gets worn down. In the middle of that picture, the Bible doesn't only describe the collapse, it also shows what it means. Hebrews 12:27 says that everything that can be shaken will be removed, so that what cannot be shaken may remain. These shocks aren't meant to destroy for no reason. They're meant to wake us up and make us look hard at the foundation of our faith. So, this isn't just a warning. It's an invitation to come back. When the world outside is shaking so much, people need a solid place to stand more than ever. Revelation 22:12 sounds like the final reminder. Look, I am coming soon. My reward is with me, and I will give to each person according to what they have done. Time isn't unlimited, and the choice can't be put off forever. If anything I've shared today touches something in your heart, feel free to leave a prayer or your thoughts in the comments below. Also, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of these wake-up messages in this series. That kind of support isn't just interaction, it's how we stay awake together in such a stormy time. To close, thank you so much to everyone who listened all the way to the end. May God's peace be with every family, protecting you through these challenging days and guiding each heart to walk in light and hope. Amen.
And we will not sit idly by and let these drug dealers continue.
Officers seize millions of dollars worth of counterfeit money in Philadelphia. Take a look at this. The agency
Move out the way. Everyone on this side of the hallway, please step aside.
What's really rising up behind all these non-stop news stories that have the whole country holding its breath? As the clock ticked into the last days of January 2026, the air felt tight, like a string about to snap, and that sense of an uncertain future spread faster than the winter chill. In just a short time, one bombshell report after another hit. Tax money drained dry, underground networks exposed, lightning-fast break-ins, money vanishing into thin air, dark symbols coming to light, and quiet machines of destruction kept running in the shadows. Everything crashed together, overlapped, and shoved society into a breathless state of chaos. Do you think this is all just random, or are these signs of something much bigger closing in? Leave a prayer down below as your way of showing faith, because this story still has dark corners waiting to be lit up. And now, are you ready to go deep with me into the darkest truths out there right now? We're jumping straight in with 61 people found locked in a dark concrete room, a sign of how low humanity can sink. Late at night, toward the end of 2025 and into early 2026, a concrete door at an abandoned industrial site outside Minneapolis was smashed open. What they found behind it wasn't a storage shed or an illegal workshop. It was a terribly cramped space, and right then, we saw one of the darkest crimes happening here in the heart of America. Inside the sealed concrete room, flashlights swept over people huddled on the cold floor. 61 human beings, many months without sunlight, skin gray from hunger, eyes empty and full of fear. The air was thick with chemical smells and mold, so bad that even some ICE team members winced and turned away. They said the scene was just too cruel. According to Fox News, the rescue came after weeks of watching a suspected network tied to human trafficking and cross-border drugs. Early records show the victims had been held from 6 to 9 months. That included 17 American citizens and people from 6 other countries. Marks on their hands showed fingerprints burned off with acid to erase who they were, turning them into nameless things easy to trade, move, or get rid of. This ties into the growing fentanyl crisis. In the first half of 2025, the DEA seized over 4,500 pounds of fentanyl powder, a number that shows how huge the underground market is, running right alongside normal life. The CJNG cartel has dug in deep, using gaps in welfare fraud to fund human trafficking, linking money, chemicals, and human lives. Psalm 82:3-4 sounds like a timeless charge. Defend the weak and the fatherless. Do justice for the poor and needy. Rescue the weak and needy from the hand of the wicked. When you look at these 61 people turned into living merchandise, those words stop being just poetry. They become a straight measure of how far things have fallen. The raid wasn't quiet. Guns went off. Commands flew fast. 5 gunmen were taken down on the spot, and hidden escape routes were found behind fake walls. The whole setup showed this wasn't some spur-of-the-moment thing. It was an organized operation, run long-term, and hidden well inside the city. News like this split Americans fast. Some were shocked, angry, and asking what else is being hidden behind dry statistics. Others doubted it, saying it was just political hype. But facts from several federal agencies stopped the argument at one clear point. Those people are real, and their suffering isn't made up. Deuteronomy 27:19 says plainly, "Cursed is anyone who withholds justice from the foreigner, the fatherless, or the widow." And all the people shall say, Amen. Here, that Bible verse isn't vague advice. It records a crime that crossed the line of basic humanity. Some say evil has always existed and we shouldn't make too much of it. But Matthew 24:12 warned, because of the increase of wickedness, the love of most will grow cold. When numbness becomes automatic, and people can be locked in dark rooms like cargo, the line between personal evil and a broken system disappears. 61 victims were brought into the light, but what got exposed makes the truth behind it even darker. If a concrete room could sit in the middle of a city without anyone knowing, how many other doors are still locked? And now that the first piece is out, where will the rest of the picture come from? The midnight coordinated raid, the fight against the cartel darkness. Minneapolis woke up on high alert as a wave of simultaneous attacks rolled out in the middle of the night. Federal forces hit multiple spots at once, moving so fast that roads barely had time to react before it turned into face-to-face confrontation. News spread like wildfire, showing this wasn't some one-off operation but a full-scale strike that had been planned for a long time. Tactical teams split up the area, locked down the outer perimeter, and pushed deep into every suspected cartel link. Armored vehicles closed in, helicopters circled overhead, and small groups moved in clear tactical formation. Short video clips captured the breach happening in just seconds. Doors smashed, suspects fighting back, tactical lights slicing through the dark. It felt like a tiny battlefield right in the middle of a neighborhood. In that moment, we realized this wasn't just regular crime anymore. It was a head-on clash between two opposing systems. One side trying to tear the network apart, the other doing everything to hold on to control. Tension spiked as cartel gunmen barricaded themselves, using trucks to block entrances and scrambling to wipe data even as federal agents closed in. Later reports tied this operation straight to massive Medicaid fraud money in Minnesota, with estimates running into billions of dollars. Earlier, Operation Artemis by DHS seized about 13,000 pounds of precursor chemicals, exposing a drug supply chain guarded by a full armed network. Those facts show the raid wasn't a knee-jerk reaction. It was the next logical step once enough pieces came together. Revelation 16 talks about a time when powers gather for a final showdown. They assembled the kings at the place called in Hebrew Armageddon. Scripture comes up here as a warning, not because of the military scale, but because the real battle between light and darkness is becoming clearer every day. As the raid went on, agents seized servers, took dozens of people into custody, and exposed the true role of places once hidden as fronts. The numbers released prove this network wasn't just hiding in the shadows. It had dug deep into finance and logistics systems. The level of organization forced many experts to admit this was one of the most complex operations ever carried out. Ephesians 6:12 reminds us the fight isn't just with flesh and blood. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world. When you look at how the cartel runs on money, guns, and fear, that warning hits closer to home than ever. Public reaction split quickly into two camps. Some saw it as a necessary turning point to stop organized crime. Others wondered if there were political motives behind such a huge operation. Still, PBS videos and DHS reports confirmed the main details, so the debate shifted from "did it happen?" to "how serious is it really?" 2 Timothy 3:1 warned about tough times ahead. In the last days, there will be perilous times. When violence, fraud, and hidden power all exist in the same space, those hard times stop being abstract. They become real pressure on society. The raid wrapped up with several hotspots under control, but the full picture isn't complete yet. If a network this big could operate for so long before getting hit head-on, the big questions still hang in the air. Where did the money that vanished go? And where will the next strike land? In those 18 minutes of panic, $96 million vanished into self-deleting accounts. The system didn't even have time to send an alert before the money was gone, leaving behind empty numbers and a bunch of unanswered questions. In less than half an hour, $96 million disappeared from accounts tied to welfare fraud. So fast that even the closest watchers only realized it after everything was already over. According to internal financial reports, this wasn't just one single transfer. It was the instant reaction of a whole network. As the pressure started closing in on key players, the hidden system woke up right away and triggered an emergency transfer mode. The money got pushed through multiple layers of middlemen, then slid into accounts set up to wipe their own data, making it extremely hard to trace. Revelation 18:17 once described a moment like this collapse. For in 1 hour, such great wealth has been brought to ruin. Those words echo like a mirror showing what's happening now. Wealth built on shady paths can vanish in a heartbeat, leaving emptiness and chaos behind. This disappearing money is closely tied to an earlier big scandal, where hundreds of millions were funneled through aid programs and only a small portion ever got recovered. The rest didn't sit still. It was spread out, laundered through offshore accounts, and came back in harder-to-spot forms. That whole operation shows an incredible level of careful planning. Financial experts say speed was the key factor here. To move nearly $100 million that quickly, the system had to be ready in advance, with a fast response script straight out of an action movie. Do you think this was just people panicking and running? Or was it a plan set up long ago? 2 Timothy 3:2 warned about a time when people would be lovers of money, boastful, arrogant. When you put those words next to the cold numbers in the report, a lot of folks start seeing an invisible connection. Greed isn't just the motive. It becomes the fuel that drives the whole network forward, no matter the consequences. While analyzing the money flow, investigators found many matches with patterns of transnational crime. The transfer structure, the timing of activation, and the way traces were erased all point to tight links between groups inside and outside the country. This isn't small-time fraud anymore. It's one link in a global operation chain. James 5:3 says, "Your gold and silver have rusted, and it will eat your flesh like fire." That picture isn't really about metal. It's about inner rot. Money piled up the wrong way eventually turns into evidence that comes back to accuse the very people holding it. From a professional view, analysts believe the 96 million is just the tip of the iceberg. The main flow of money may have been split up earlier and hidden deep in shell funds and hard-to-value assets. What vanished in those 18 minutes is like a door slamming shut, hiding a much bigger space behind it. Revelation 18 isn't only about one city's fall. It's about a whole wealthy system built on a wrong foundation. Looking at today's reality, many see it as a reminder. No cover-up lasts forever, and every structure based on greed has its breaking point. One thing is certain, the story doesn't end with $96 million. Other money flows are still being checked, and other accounts are still out of sight. If just this exposed part has already shaken the system, what else is hidden even deeper, right here in the heart of America, waiting to come out? Financial damage tops $4. $3 billion reveals a hidden criminal nation right here. Billions of dollars gone. This isn't just one scam anymore. It's a dark financial picture coming into clear view. When you add up the numbers, a hidden operation starts to take shape, one that's living right inside the United States, quietly draining the country's resources. Have you ever wondered what that money has really been feeding behind the scenes, under a legal cover? It started with one fraud case worth a few $100 million. Then wider checks uncovered shocking things. Luxury cars, fancy homes, and expensive designer goods got seized. That's the easy-to-see part. Behind it lies a complicated money network, where tax dollars get twisted, split up, and funneled into streams that never come back to help the community. Revelation 18:3 described this pattern long ago. For all nations have drunk the maddening wine of her adulteries. The kings of the earth committed adultery with her, and the merchants of the earth grew rich from her excessive luxuries. When you put those words next to what's happening now, the picture of a business empire built on crime becomes chillingly clear. Independent financial reviews put the total damage over $4.3 billion. that money doesn't just sit there. It's spread into secret activities, money laundering through layers of middlemen, supporting drug rings, human trafficking, and even darker black markets. Every stolen dollar isn't only a budget loss. It's a piece of a long chain of social harm. Public anger is rising as political accusations come out. Some people say there has been looking the other way, or even protection, letting this network grow. The feeling of betrayal is spreading, not because of party fights, but because trust in the system that should protect everyone's interests is breaking down. Revelation 18:11 reads like an indictment. The merchants of the earth will weep and mourn over her, because no one buys their goods anymore. That image brings to mind the moment of collapse, when the whole wealth structure built on wrong is cut off from its buyers, leaving only ruin and emptiness. From an objective view, economists warn the real damage could be even higher. Much of the money has been turned into hard-to-trace assets, scattered in shell funds and front companies. Getting it all back is almost impossible, which means the final burden still falls on taxpayers. 1 Timothy 6:10 sums it up sharply. For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. Some people, eager for money, have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. When greed becomes the main drive, it destroys not just personal morals, but the whole system too. What's worrying is that this isn't a loose group of criminals. It acts like an invisible nation with its own cash flow, networks, self-protection, and ability to rebuild. Its existence raises big questions about financial security and public ethics in the near future. Revelation 18 isn't just about the fall of ancient Babylon. It's a pattern for any system that gets rich through wrong. As the pieces fit together now, many people are starting to see this isn't some far-off warning. It's a mirror of our time. What's confirmed is that those billions didn't vanish by magic. If they were once hidden in secret safes, guarded by layers of power and interests, the final question still hangs in the air. What key evidence will come out to expose the whole structure, and who won't have time to cover up when the light shines straight into its center? They found $38 million in cash with a CJNG scorpion symbol. The scorpion symbol shows up, not on paperwork, but carved right onto those tightly wrapped bundles of cash, sitting deep inside a safe. When pictures of this came out, a lot of folks just froze. This isn't just about money anymore. It's a clear sign with real meaning behind it. Does it give you chills when something familiar from the Bible suddenly steps into real life? Inside the locked room, the stacks of US dollars were carefully shrink-wrapped and piled up, totaling $38 million. On the outside of the wrapping, that cold scorpion symbol stood out, not as decoration, but as a mark of who it belongs to. The people who counted it said they got goosebumps from how neatly and deliberately everything was arranged. It shows this belongs to a group that runs on strict discipline and fear. Revelation 9:3 gives something worth thinking about. And out of the smoke, locusts came down on the earth and were given power like that of scorpions of the earth. In the Bible, scorpions aren't just bugs. They stand for painful power and unseen control. When you put those words next to this picture of the safe, a lot of people start wondering if it's really just a coincidence. From on-the-ground reports, this cash was the end of a long trail of dirty money that passed through layers of middlemen and shell accounts. There's no doubt anymore who it belongs to. The scorpion symbol has long been tied to one criminal group that controls the most dangerous smuggling routes. Keeping it as straight cash instead of turning it into other assets means this is reserve money for bigger operations down the road. Revelation 9:10 goes deeper into the symbol. They had tails with stingers, like scorpions. And in their tails, they had power to harm people for 5 months. That picture makes many scholars think of long-lasting damage that's quiet but slowly eats away at society. When money gets linked to that symbol, the question of what it's really for gets even scarier. Religious symbol experts say the scorpion often stands for quiet betrayal and death coming from behind. In today's world, it also means control through fear and making people dependent. Choosing the scorpion as a mark isn't random. It's a message inside the group about power and punishment for anyone who disobeys. From another angle, some security analysts point out the symbol has a strong psychological effect too. It creates a twisted sense of something bigger and almost sacred, so members feel they're serving more than just themselves. That's part of why the network has lasted so long through all the crackdowns. Luke 10:19 brings a hopeful balance. I have given you authority to trample on snakes and scorpions, and to overcome all the power of the enemy. Nothing will harm you. In the Bible's flow, even scary scorpions are still under God's control. That verse is usually seen as a promise that evil power has limits and will finally be defeated. For anyone doubting the symbol might be faked to hype the story, independent reports have confirmed it's real. It matches not just the image, but also how the group marks things internally. That pretty much rules out pure chance. When you connect all the pieces, a lot of people feel this is a time when signs are being shown more clearly than ever. The symbol, the money, and the network all came out at once, forming a picture the Bible described in symbolic language. Not to scare people for no reason, but to wake up awareness and faith that might have been sleeping. The big question still hangs out there. That $38 million didn't just sit waiting to be found. If it's fuel, what machine is about to start running? And where will the next sign show up now that the scorpion has revealed itself? Fraud money funding giant drug factories. 38 tons of fentanyl every day. This isn't some number from a sci-fi documentary. It's right there in investigation reports about a drug network running like a full-scale industrial plant. When those figures came out, it hit people hard. The sheer size was way beyond anything we'd ever pictured. Just think what happens when a machine like that gets fed by fraud money. The documents they gathered show illegal cash pouring in to build closed-off production sites. There, fentanyl and cocaine get made at a cold, steady pace, like an assembly line for steel. We're not talking a few small labs. This is a system that can turn out 32 to 38 tons of fentanyl a day, plus about 70 tons of cocaine a week. That scale alone is big enough to change the whole picture of public safety across the country. Revelation 18:23 paints a haunting picture of what's going on. For your merchants were the great men of the earth, for by your sorcery all the nations were deceived. In the original language, that word sorcery ties to pharmakia. It doesn't just mean magic. It points to mind-numbing drugs that dull the mind and reason. When you put those words next to today's synthetic drugs, a lot of folks see a scary connection. Big seizures in the Midwest have shown just the tip of the iceberg. Tons of illegal stuff worth tens of millions of dollars, only shipments that hadn't hit the streets yet. Estimates say the street value of what gets produced each week could top $3.2 billion. It floods neighborhoods and slips into communities before anyone can stop it. Revelation 9:21 keeps shining light on that dark side. And they did not repent of their murders, sorceries, sexual immorality, or thefts. Here, drugs aren't just a standalone problem anymore. They're one link in a much bigger chain of crime. It brings violence, moral decay, and a hardness of heart, just like the Bible describes a society that has lost the ability to turn back. Public reaction went from shock straight to anger. Lots of people are asking, how could a huge production system like this stay hidden for so long? The truth coming out shows fraud money acted as fuel. It let the criminal network build facilities, buy chemicals, hire workers, all hidden behind misused legal fronts. Galatians 5:19-20 lays out the ugly results, plain and simple. The acts of the flesh are obvious: sexual immorality, impurity, debauchery, idolatry. People often read this passage as a warning about the road to destruction. When drugs take control, they don't just wreck bodies. They twist relationships and tear at the basic values that hold society together. Sociologists say synthetic drugs are different from old-school narcotics in speed and damage. Just a tiny bit of fentanyl can kill, so the harm spreads faster than any disease we've seen. That's why industrial-scale production is now seen as a direct national security threat, not just a regular crime issue. From a theological view, many scholars say pharmakeia is mentioned as a final tool to deceive and control crowds. It numbs people to truth, makes them easy to lead and dependent. When you line that up with these huge numbers on production and distribution, the Bible's warning feels clearer and more urgent than ever. All these pieces fit together into a grim picture. Fraud money doesn't just disappear. It gets turned into poison that seeps through every part of society, destroying families and communities one by one. This isn't the story of one criminal group anymore. It's what happens when morals get loose and greed has no limits. If these factories are only part of a much bigger network, the questions ahead feel even heavier. How many more layers of this killing machine are still hidden? And where is this whole picture taking humanity next? The situation in America right now is a lot like what the Lord warned about thousands of years ago. The big picture isn't just scattered pieces anymore. With crooked money flows, synthetic drugs, human trafficking, and one raid after another, America has slipped into a long period of shaking where the old order doesn't hold its shape. The cold numbers, billions of dollars lost and thousands of victims, are not just statistics. They're signs of a system eating away at itself from the inside. Looking back at the chain of events, things that seemed separate are actually tightly linked. Financial fraud isn't just numbers on paper. It fuels huge criminal networks running like big business. Drugs flood communities, human trafficking spreads wide, and constant raids show a society always putting out fires instead of stopping the problem at the root. We're not facing one single crisis anymore. It's a real whirlwind. Revelation 18:2 paints a picture that's eerily familiar. Fallen is Babylon the Great. She has become a dwelling for demons and a haunt for every impure spirit. This passage isn't just about an ancient city. It describes what happens to a civilization when trade and power get twisted by sin. When you look at today, a lot of folks see some sobering similarities. Social changes don't happen in a vacuum. They come with a hardening of hearts, where greed and lawlessness start feeling normal. Matthew 24:12 warned about it. Because of the increase of wickedness, the love of most will grow cold. We don't need supernatural disasters. The spreading numbness is the clearest sign of a tired, lost society. When you connect the dots, a pattern keeps repeating. Money gets worshipped, truth gets covered up, and people turn into tools in a profit machine. 2 Timothy 3:1-2 describes it exactly. There will be terrible times in the last days. People will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money. This isn't some far-off prediction anymore. It's a mirror of right now. On a deeper level, this isn't just about America. It's part of a worldwide trend where big systems get fragile once they cut loose from moral foundations. What's happening feels like a collective test, forcing people to choose, keep compromising, or turn back to the basic values that got forgotten. Revelation 18:7 gives the final, no-nonsense judgment. Give her as much torment and grief as the glory and luxury she gave herself. It's the last word on pride and wealth built on others' suffering. No need for people to pass sentence. The consequences of sin become the judgment themselves. In all this, the main message isn't fear. It's a call to turn around. John 3:16 reminds us of the real hope. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish but have eternal life. When everything earthly shakes, this promise is the one steady anchor that never moves. Looking at the whole journey, what's left isn't just shocking headlines. It's a personal question you can't dodge. In the middle of the chaos, each of us faces our own choice. Keep getting swept along in the whirlwind, or stop and look for a spiritual way out. Faith doesn't erase hard reality. but it gives us strength to stand firm and see clearly. In the end, the big picture is clear enough that we can't just ignore it. When evil gets exposed and those ancient warnings ring true right now, staying silent isn't neutral anymore. Truth sets people free, and sharing it isn't about scaring folks. It's about waking hearts and pointing to the only hope that won't collapse. Looking at the big picture, those 6 news stories we just went through aren't just separate little pieces of the daily news anymore. They're starting to fit together into a much larger scene, one of a world that's really shaking. From strange upheavals and hard-to-explain troubles, to that quiet feeling of unease creeping into everyday life, it all reminds us that history isn't just random. The Bible put it plainly in Matthew 24:6-8. You will hear of wars and rumors of wars, but that is just the beginning of the birth pains. When we put those 6 stories side by side, we start to feel the heartbeat of a warning that was given a long time ago. What I'm sharing here isn't meant to scare anybody. It's to help wake us up and make us think. The Bible doesn't feel like some old, distant book. It feels like a mirror showing us what's happening right now. Luke 21:11 says, "There will be great earthquakes, famines, and pestilences in various places, and fearful events, and great signs from heaven." When we line that up with today, it's hard to ignore how much they match. It makes a person stop and really ask themselves where they're headed. From that kind of awareness, the call isn't to panic, it's to turn back. This is a time for each of us to quiet our hearts, reconnect with what's truly spiritual, and put our full trust in the one who holds history in his hands. Psalm 46:1 reminds us, God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. When we turn to him with honest prayer, that unease slowly gets replaced by a peace that goes beyond what we can figure out on our own. If these thoughts touch your heart, feel free to share a short prayer or your own thoughts in the comments below. It's a simple way to stand together in faith. And if you pass this along or stick with the channel for the long haul, it helps us all keep hearing the next messages, the reminders we need in these shaky times, so our understanding doesn't get broken up along the way. Finally, thank you so much to everyone who's taken the time to listen and think about this. May the grace and protection of the Lord be with us and our families in every situation, like the blessing in Numbers 6:24-26. The Lord bless you and keep you, and give you peace. Amen.
Split open. The camera captured an extraordinary scene. A bizarre shape emerged in...
O som foi gravado por dezenas de pessoas.
These strange
The sky is cracking open. Giant waves are swallowing cities whole. Strange lights are flashing everywhere. Early in 2026, is Earth screaming its final warning? When everything we thought was steady starts shaking all at once, the fear doesn't come from just one place anymore. It rushes in from every direction, fast and hard, not giving people any time to get ready. In just a short time, the oceans turn angry, cities catch fire, the sky changes color, weird lights tear through the darkness, and the ground and the air itself seem to lose control. Things that look like they're not connected keep happening one after another, piling up, covering many continents, making it feel like the world is being pushed quickly toward a point of no return. Do you think this is just a coincidence? Or is it a wake-up call that people have ignored for way too long? If you still have a little faith left in your heart, please leave a prayer in the comments below before we go deeper together into each moment that's so unbelievable, yet really happened out in the open, for real. Amen. And now, so you don't have to wait any longer, we'll jump right in with 1. The pitch-black monster wave out on the wild ocean swallowed up the whole coast of Sicily, Italy. A towering wall of inky black water slammed into the Sicily shore in Italy, wiping out everything in its path. In just a second, the familiar coastline was gone. The roaring scream of the ocean drowned out the warning sirens, and the panic spread so fast we barely had time to figure out what was happening. The first reports came pouring in. Pictures flew around like crazy, carrying a chilling message. The sea wasn't calm anymore. Sicily is usually known as a peaceful spot in the Mediterranean, where life moves with sunshine, breeze, and gentle waves. But this time the water turned dark, almost black, rising up like a giant wall far out at sea before crashing straight onto land. Scientists have recorded big waves in this area before, but the recent weird shifts in the Earth's magnetic field and strange space weather patterns have made experts rethink old ideas because this one was way bigger than normal. From the videos spreading fast and early numbers, the wave was estimated at nearly 100 feet high, moving at tremendous speed, sweeping away cars, houses, and anything in its way. According to CNN, experts called this one of the most dangerous rogue wave events recorded in the Mediterranean in recent times. Time-lapse footage shows the black water surging up like a flood from the deep, feeling just like a gate to hell had swung open. Local authorities in Sicily quickly sent out emergency warnings, telling people to stay away from the coast, move out of low-lying areas for now, and absolutely not go near the water. Amid all the dry facts and technical alerts, the Bible quietly came to mind in a haunting way. Genesis 7:11-12 says, "In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, on the 17th day, all the fountains of the great deep burst forth, and the windows of the heavens were opened, and rain fell upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights." The picture of water rising from the deep suddenly matched what we were seeing in a really scary way. Jesus also talked about those days in Matthew 24:37-39. "For as were the days of Noah, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. They were unaware until the flood came and swept them all away." Those words don't spell out a final answer, but they're enough to plant a deep unease in people, like history might be repeating itself in a different form. Many scientists say this was a rogue wave caused by unusual weather and ocean conditions. But the way they kept coming and the unbelievable size make that explanation hard to accept fully. It doesn't ease the shared worry. When the sea suddenly turns furious and everything we trust feels so fragile, the feeling grows that this isn't just another natural disaster. So the wave in Sicily isn't simply a weather story anymore. It's become a powerful wake-up call, as if something bigger is starting. If the ocean has roared like this, the question doesn't need an answer right now, but the echo hangs there. Is this just the beginning of even larger changes ahead? 2. War on the streets of Marseille, France. Marseille suddenly fell into chaos out of nowhere. It's no longer just scattered news clips. The video shows a suffocating reality where city order breaks down in just minutes, leaving you with the feeling that the line between normal life and violence has been ripped apart. Marseille is normally a busy port city in France, where people and goods come together every day. But in the spreading footage, familiar avenues are covered in black smoke, shop windows are shattered, and flames burst from cars and restaurants alike. This scene doesn't stand alone. It reflects a wave of social unrest happening in many European cities, where global tensions make local conflicts worse and push crowds past the point of control. In the footage captured by CNN, cars burn fiercely at intersections, police lines move forward through tear gas, and protest groups face off hard. You see national leaders pop up here and there in the news, but the real focus of the video is the street itself, running on the rules of violence. No harsh commentary is needed here. The chaos speaks for itself. Official statements come out in calm, neutral tones, stressing that they're restoring order and keeping civilians safe. They use the term civil unrest to describe what's happening, like they're trying to put a clean label on it. Still, when you watch the full sequence of images, the sense of things being out of control is clear. Fires spread faster than the response, and the city space turns into a temporary battle line. Right in the middle of those scenes, the Bible comes in as a distant but loud warning. Matthew 24:6-7 says, "You will hear of wars and rumors of wars, But see to it that you are not alarmed. Such things must happen, but the end is still to come. Nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. This warning doesn't try to explain every detail. It puts the chaos into a bigger picture of growing conflicts. That warning gets even stronger in Revelation 6. For its writer was given power to take peace from the earth and to make people kill each other.